All right. Hey, welcome back. We're now actually starting the gaming phase of this series.
The real
The
realness of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
How would you call it? The
meat and potatoes.
meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
The meat and potatoes. All right. So welcome back, y'all. This is now episode 2 of game tasting. And as we've told you in the past episode, we're going to be shooting for Final Fantasy XIV, which is my favorite game. One of them.
We got a cookbook for it right here. That's how much we love it.
That's right. I've made one of the drinks on that.
Yeah.
It was
good. It was like a gin based.
Yeah, it was a gin based, like it's their elixir.
Mm-hmm. And then I actually made one. It was on the next page. That was the X potion one.
Was it good?
It was good. I won't say yours was better though. The one that I made had to do with like this syrup that was kind of like it had rosemary involved in it and stuff, which doesn't. I don't think it's just my thing, but it's still not bad.
Oh, yeah. Okay, perfect. Before we start, I want to point out. Just look at our gear. What are you wearing?
Oh, I've got my just a little loppets, coming out of my little chest pocket.
Little
there.
pocket.
They're hanging out. Where are they? Where are the other ones? Oh, down here.
Pocket loppets.
Yeah, pocket loppets.
All right, and I'm wearing the Scions
Of the Seventh Dawn.
of the Seventh Dawn. So, bang. And that just shows, goes to show how much we love the show.
Yeah.
Not the show. Jesus, the show. How much we love
the game.
And
We got shorts.
we are super excited to actually talk about this. We've done a good amount of content for y'all. We're going to try to put some as we're talking on the video episode. And it'll be a good time.
Yeah.
So, you want to give a quick overview?
Yeah. So, for anyone who doesn't know, there's probably some people out there that have never even played a Final Fantasy game. But Final Fantasy XIV is an MMO. It's the 14th installment in the Final Fantasy franchise. And it's an interesting.
It's interesting.
It's interesting. The whole story behind the game is interesting. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, it's something that was interesting that I heard once. I can't remember where I heard it or who said it even, but someone actually described it. Instead of calling it an MMORPG, they called it an RPG MMO because, in comparison to like WoW and Star Trek Online, because I couldn't think of anything else.
How about ESO, right?
Your ESO. The focus on Final Fantasy XIV was still like the story and the world and everything, while the MMO aspect was sort of like it came secondary to that.
So is that why we chose this game for this episode?
Well, it's one of the reasons. I think the main reason is just it's crazy how much we both came to love it.
Yeah.
And just how high quality it is.
Yeah.
And on so many, it's just firing on all fronts.
It's crazy because like I've mentioned on episode 1 is I was a hater for the series. I was a big hater.
I was trying to get you on it for a while.
Yeah. Since Heaven's Ward.
Yeah.
I think is when you were trying to get me in.
I can't, I wish I could say I went that far back.
No,
I technically started in Stormblood.
And
I don't think
it was Stormblood because I started Stormblood, the end of Stormblood.
I think you actually came in when it was Shadowbringers, if I remember correctly.
We're talking about all of these titles.
Right, yes.
We got ahead of ourselves. These are expansions.
Yes. So kind of going back to the brief overview it is an MMO. So it came out, there was sort of the base game. And then every I want to say maybe around 2 years, they would release another expansion, which would continue the main story and add new features, increase,
and improve the grape texture.
Improving grape texture. That was a big one.
Was very important.
And raise level, all sorts of new changes and all that stuff.
And as Dorian was saying, we have had how many? So we had the base game, Heaven's Ward. We'll talk about it in a sec.
Because that's an interesting thing on its own.
So the base game, Heaven's Ward, Stormblood, Shadowbringers, and Walker.
And soon coming out this summer, according to Square Enix, Dawn Trail.
Dawn Trail.
We're excited.
We're going to Mexico.
We're going to, and then like inside of a GPU, it looked like.
We're going to Mexico.
Yeah.
So we have had a total of 5 iterations of the game and 1 upcoming soon.
Yep.
And so the way that we're going to talk about and how we're going to play this game is that, or how we played it, is we're covering the game in its entirety. We're not talking about a specific expansion. We're talking about just the general gameplay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The all-encompassing umbrella.
Right.
Yeah. And like we've said, the reason we chose it is because we love this game.
Yeah. And like we mentioned in the pilot episode, you know, you and I have some crossover as far as games we like, but we also like pretty different things. And yet this game just appealed to both of us.
It was so common for us.
Yeah. It did such a good job of just, you know, bridging worlds.
It did. I mean, it's such a good game. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what we did. So we ended up playing the game. We ran some EX trials, which are extreme trials, which is the step above or 2 steps above the normal difficulty, because it goes normal, hard, extreme, savage, ultimate.
Right. And even then it gets a little confusing because like savage, there'll be trial fights that don't get a savage difficulty, but raid fights do.
Correct.
And for those of you who don't know what a raid is, it's basically just like a really tough boss fight.
Yeah. With 8 total people. And the way that this game works is whenever you're doing a dungeon or any content in the game, you're able to experience it solo, by yourself, or with the chocobo.
Yeah. That was it. I didn't know how I felt about that actually, because you know, there's maybe that a little bit of elitist in me coming from like the WoW side of things, where because you know they kept adding ways in Final Fantasy where you could play just through pretty much everything in the main story just completely solo. Yeah. And for a little bit, I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. You know, it's an MMO. Like you should be, talking to people. Talking to people. Talking to people, getting to know the community. You know, participating. But then I heard, you know, what I mentioned, where it's an RPG MMO. It's like the story in the world is really first, and so I was like, okay, I guess I can kind of understand that. And so we did multiple things for this episode. We played EX Dungeons. We also played one of Dorian's favorite dungeons. It's called Sastasha. Oh my, no. It's producer Jane's favorite. And so she's also in the room with us, for the record. Just because this being a Final Fantasy XIV episode, it was, I think it's important for her to be here because honestly, she's the reason you actually got into it. Correct. I was the one trying to convince you for the longest time. Yes. And then I figured out the cheat code is I just get your wife to play it. That's right. Yeah. And then even then she played through the first part of the game until I decided to like take it on, because she played through the base game, which in my opinion is a fucking slog. But then there's a lot of people who swear that you need to learn and like play it. It's a lot of world building that's set up, and that's one of the parts I fucking bought. I skipped that. I went straight into. I mean, for the record though, I do want to say I did play all the way to level 30 before I decided that I'm gonna buy it. So I played Final Fantasy XIV. To clarify, when you say buy it, you mean like you skipped some of the story. I skipped all. Yeah. Of the base. You skipped to a certain expansion. I skipped to the first expansion. Yeah. And then from the first expansion, that's when I started playing from Heavensward onward. And I think it's a very good game. So let's give it, or before we start kind of getting off tangent, let's give it our very quick initial impressions. And let's start with you. I'm curious what your initial impressions are. So mine, I didn't quite have too big of an impression initially. I knew that there had been an MMO in the past. Final Fantasy XI was also an MMO. That's right. I never played it, but I remember always hearing about it and hearing how crazy, how crazy it was that there were people that were like making money off of it also, and by selling things. And
and I hate to interrupt, but like
Yeah.
one of the things that stood out with Final Fantasy 11 to me is that they included a boss fight that legitimately lasted 48 hours. I don't know if you knew about that.
I did not know about it. It
there
was like a world
fight.
boss
It's
kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the first implementation of this boss. It was the blue glob thing. I forgot the name.
Yeah.
And it took 48 hours. And the reason was they fucked up on the code.
Oh, it wasn't even on
It wasn't
purpose?
supposed to be on purpose. It was supposed to take 4 hours max.
Still, 4 hours max. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But it took 48 hours.
48, and it was the entire server who was fighting.
And they were coming together to, and see,
Yes.
that's cool.
And it was
that's
coming
what I love
together.
about MMOs is that like community, like everyone kind of coming together to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a vibe. Sorry, go on. Please.
Yeah, so like that was really my only, impression of the MMO. At least I had played other Final Fantasy games, and that was pretty much my thought. It was like, I like those games. It'd be cool to be able to just like make my own character because they all have pre-existing characters. So I always love sort of inserting myself through a created character in those kinds of worlds. Yeah. So I was like, oh yeah, I kind of just want to try that out. And I'll be honest, like the very first time I played it, it was with no one. Like it actually was, it wasn't even with Joey. Joey kind of came in later when I jumped back into the game to help me out. The very first time I was like, what is going on?
Wait, I thought Joey was the first person. Yeah, he was, because I remember he played Rebirth, the original.
Yeah. So when I'm talking about like when I first,
when I first started, you were solo.
Yeah. Okay. It was just like on a whim.
Okay.
Like it was on Steam and I was just like, yeah, I'll try it out. But like, and the game is so different now compared to then.
We'll cover that.
So I didn't actually get too far because like it actually was a little bit overwhelming at the time. Yeah. And so I didn't stick with it for too long. But I still liked how it looked and the vibe of it. And so I was like, if I just had like a little bit of help, I could get back into it. So yeah, my initial impression was just like, oh, cool, Final Fantasy game that like I can play with friends, maybe.
Yeah. So let me give you mine. So my initial impression was this game is gorgeous. Coming in from different multitudes of MMOs, like let's say WoW, even just using WoW as a baseline in comparison to 14, the game is just beautiful.
Yeah. Which that was something that kind of blew my mind.
For an MMO, it's
because
not, I was under the impression it's not supposed to look good.
One, it blew my mind with how I thought it looked good. But then after playing it for a little while, I saw people complaining that it looked bad. And I was like, have you guys ever played WoW?
Another MMO.
Have you played another MMO? This is gorgeous.
Like, what's another MMO?
RuneScape.
Does that even... It counts. Producer Jane was a big RuneScape person.
Jane, what do you think? Is RuneScape, is that an MMO? Would you call it? Okay. Yeah.
She saws that. There's another one, Last Chaos, or
I don't know.
The fuck was that?
Last
Chaos. Oh no, that's another MMO. I did kind of touch that a little bit. Last Chaos, and like these games look like shit compared to 14.
The closest thing that I can say
BDO
to looking good. Well, actually, I never actually played BDO, but I played the Star Wars Old Republic game. But they specifically went like the art style they used in that. I think it was because the Clone Wars series, like on TV, was popular, and so I think they were trying to capitalize on that. So they made it like kind of more cartoony looking.
I see.
Which I wasn't a huge fan of that, but like I guess you could say it looked good in the sense that it matched.
DCUO, not good enough. I feel
that DCUO.
Yeah.
Is not one that holds up over time.
No.
At the time, it looked cool. Yeah. But yeah, not anymore.
When that was first introduced, DCUO, it was in beta. The studio, it was Sony. They were in Austin still. They used to be at the Arboretum. I was intern for DCUO.
Wow.
I interned for DCUO. I didn't do shit. All I did was grab them coffee and get them copied paper.
Okay.
But I was a part of that.
Hey, but you were there.
Yeah. It was, I mean, DCO was like, I think the closest comparison to me, in my opinion, is Guild Wars 2.
Yeah, Guild Wars 2 is a pretty good looking game.
And that game was incredible as far as it is. It's a lot more instance than 14 is. But that's as close as you can get. And even then, 14 is just miles away, you know?
Yeah.
So that's one of the initial impressions for me. It was a very beautiful game. And then I started doing content with friends.
Yeah. Yep.
And the first piece of content I ever got to try out was EX Shiva. EX Mommy Step on Me.
Oh.
Yes.
And then the
And so here's like a little clip of that. We'll include a clip here, and you guys will see how crazy this fight is. Also, it's something that we recorded and played, so it'll be on a separate video to show that we actually did do it. This game was so incredible to me coming from WoW, because WoW is a stat check for majority of the things that you're doing. It's a stat check. I mean, also positionals. But the way that 14 to me was different is that it involves so much teamwork necessary. Especially the harder the content, the more strict the requirements and the timing windows are. So for EX Shiva, it wasn't, it like for someone new, it was kind of difficult. I'll even agree and say that. But it was an incredibly beautiful fight, I think. And that was the trial that I did with my friends. And I was like, I'm hooked. I'm in.
Yeah, that is something I think, because when I think back to WoW, there's only maybe one or two fights that are like raid boss fights that were like a big deal that I remember being like, oh, this is cool.
The original Nixia.
And see, even that one, when I think back to like,
Talking about Illidan?
no, I'm thinking about the Lich King.
Oh, the Lich was
actually.
fight.
The Lich King was so cool,
nice.
especially because through a wacky set of circumstances, I was not supposed to, but I ended up tanking him.
What?
And like, I'm a pretty big nerd. All right. I role played on WoW a lot. I role played as a Death Knight. And so I got to tank him as a Death Knight. And so there was like that weird, like, oh, this is like the revenge I'm finally getting to have on the Lich King. It was just like, that was a cool moment.
You into that.
Yeah. And so like that one, and maybe, Kael'thas.
Kael'thas was really good. You didn't feel the same for Illidan? Okay, hold on. So we're getting sidetracked.
I didn't play
Illidan.
Yeah.
So for 14, I think that's the feeling I received.
Yeah.
Right.
My original point before I went off on the WoW tangent is like there weren't many bosses in WoW that I think back and I'm like, I want to fight that boss again just for the fun of it. Final Fantasy XIV, there are bosses where I won't even get any loot out of it or anything. I just want to play it again because it's just fun to do. Fun. Yeah.
It's just fun. Like,
and Shiva's one of those.
Shiva has like this mechanic, y'all, where you're not supposed to touch your keyboard at all for when she's doing freeze ground. And if you touch her keyboard, you will start sliding off. And when you slide off,
you don't have any, like, you're going to start moving that direction and you can't stop yourself.
Can't stop because it's ice. And like, to me, that's cool. Finding that out for the very first time, I was like, all right, can't press buttons.
Yep.
And I don't know, like, to me, the initial impression I got of the game after Shiva was, okay, the game is more complex than I gave it credit for. Because initially I was like, okay, it's a casual baby game. Oh, that's cool. They tell you where to line up, like where to go. So hard, right? Yeah. So hard. Oh, but when you're playing it and you're in that space and you're in the mindset that you're that character, it feels great. Yeah. So I started playing the game as a samurai.
I remember, and you said that was the only
class I would ever play.
Yeah,
and so I played samurai all the way till the end of Endwalker. That's when, and I was like, okay, this is an incredible like class. This is me. And I did promise that to everyone. I was like, I will never touch a class. It's only Sam, because like I was, in my head, I was role playing as the lone samurai. Didn't care about.
That was married though.
Yeah, that was married. I am married in game.
Yeah.
With Jane. And I was playing samurai and I was just like, I want to be the hero.
Yeah.
So to me, I was that hero. I was traveling.
You
by
wanted to be
myself.
main character.
Main character. I was main
Yeah.
character as hell. It's like seeing Yasuo, and also I'm a big like I love the idea of being top of the damage charts, which don't get into that. One, it's a bannable offense to run those plugins. But I liked, hypothetically being top chart. Because to me, it's like that's a finite number and it shows who's the best at that time. And so I'm hyper competitive in that sense. And I just, out of boredom, I wanted to try out a different class.
Well, what was the first one that you tried that was not samurai? Because I know right now you love paladin.
Yeah. So right now, at the current moment, I would say I am actually a sage main.
Oh, wow. Sage main.
Yeah. I'm a sage main, paladin secondary, and then samurai tertiary. Because I did the ultimates with sage.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I know.
Never would have thought of you as a healer.
Oh,
Like,
I don't heal.
oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. It's sage. What am I thinking?
I don't heal. So with the windows there being like a sage is a damage dealing healer. The more damage I do, the more you get healed. And so when I picked up paladin, now my mindset changed when I'm like playing paladin for real. Because now I want to protect everyone.
Yeah, you want to
Paladin has
do the
skill.
get behind me.
Yeah, the get behind me. Giant wings to protect everyone behind him, taking 40% reduced damage.
Yeah. It's a cool one.
It
looks
cool
cool.
one. I love it. And especially there's like dungeons or raids where you go in, the boss is gonna do a big damage. I'm just saying like P12, right? Like P12 has that. And it's like, damn, I'm over here. I'm like getting in front.
Yeah.
I'm like, bang, get behind me. And then it just feels good. And I think the reason I even decided to pick up another class was because Samurai is not able to solo content at all in the same way that a tank can. Like as a paladin, you're able to solo savage content from the last patch by yourself. Same with warrior. And same with not Gunbreaker. It's the other one.
So before we get too in the weeds here,
Yeah.
this was just supposed to be our initial impressions, and you can see that we're
So passionate about it.
yeah,
bro.
we're so passionate about it. But I think we should give a little bit of history on the game.
Go ahead.
Because it's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's a long one. And it's because it's a lot. And the developers, I'll add on. I'm going to let Dorian be the historian for this.
Yeah. So, like right now, I don't know. I don't know if it's too bold of me to say that like currently it's the number one MMO.
It's not. You're not lying. It is.
Okay. So
By a long shot too.
and it didn't start out that way though, not by a long shot. And so it's interesting because it just goes to show the dedication of the developers, specifically our boy Yoshi P.
Yoshi P.
Like his passion for that game, like just he strapped it on his back and he's like, I'm gonna make this thing good.
So before I try to cut in on that one, explain the original 14.
So it's interesting. If you were to go and buy the base game right now, it would be called Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. Weird that it has a subtitle when it's the base game. Reason for that is actually the very first release of Final Fantasy XIV was not what you are able to play today. It was a boring, buggy mess of a game. Yeah. It was a pile of shit.
And everyone took a fat shit on it. Everyone was destroying it, rightfully so.
Rightfully so. Because, I mean, 11, it might not have been the most popular thing, but people liked it.
It had a cult following.
Yeah. It was a lot of people liked it. And so they were expecting something at least on the same quality as 11. And so when this like giant turd gets dropped after all these years, everyone's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And so this went on and they kind of like tried to lazily improve it for a little bit.
Yeah.
But then finally Yoshi P comes along and is like, you know what? The players are right. This was hot garbage. Let's let's build it again, just from the ground up. And that's exactly what they did. They went back, brand new engine. They went back to the drawing board, like completely started from scratch.
Yeah.
And the super cool thing that they did with this is they worked this redo into the storyline of the game.
Yeah.
So if you were playing back then on that horrible version
1.0.
on 1.0, an event started called like the cataclysm.
It's not
the what am I thinking? Calamity. Thank you.
Thanks, producer Jane.
The Calamity.
Yeah.
And you got to experience this as a player in game. And you know, it ends with like, you see this giant meteor coming down on this battlefield.
So this happened during 1.0? Or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And you can go on YouTube and
so
like,
cool,
you can find gameplay of people playing back in the day, and you see them just hanging out.
That's so sick.
Because as the meteor's coming down, they shut off the servers. And that's supposed to be the calamity happening.
Dude, so I never played 1.0, so I had no idea. I knew of the game.
Yeah.
Like Jonathan and them were asking me to play, but I was against it.
The cutscene that you watch, like the cinematic for A Realm Reborn, where it shows the big battle and all that stuff, that was actually happening in game. Yeah. And so they shut down the servers. That's supposed to be the calamity happening.
Bro.
And then they launch A Realm Reborn. And the story, there's story behind that, where the calamity basically sort of like erased people's memories, that there were these warriors of light at that battle, but they can't remember who they are because of whatever the calamity did. But the warriors of light are the players.
Bro, I have goosebumps.
Yeah. And so, 2.0 is A Realm Reborn, and that's basically their rebooting of the game, and it's just been uphill.
And one thing that also pulled me into the game was the love that the developers really did have for the product.
Yeah, they did not abandon it.
They did not. So the way that it worked was, after the tragedy that is 1.0, they were crying and apologizing to everyone in the mass media. They did this, and they were just extremely broken, crying and asking for forgiveness and for a second chance.
It has to do with that Japanese
work
culture. Like when a product is out, it's like they take ownership of that, whatever it is.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
if it fails, that's like on them.
Yeah, it's not like any Blizzard.
They don't
game.
just like write it off as like, oh well, we got money out of it. So
yeah. So the way that happened was, I saw this interview with Yoshi P and Masayoshi Soken. So it was an interview that Soken had and Yoshi P had, and like two other developers, I forgot their names. And they were apologizing, extremely deep, bowing for the community and to please give them another chance. And it showed true dedication in listening to the people that are paying. And that's why I think A Realm Reborn was so successful, because they really do care about the game. And they also, all the devs actually still play.
They play, Yoshi P, he plays it. And I always love it. There's like an annual event in game where I can't remember what it's called.
Is it the Firefly or the Fire?
I'm not sure, but it's essentially I think this little storyline changes a little bit every year, but at the end of it, it always ends with this like avatar that's supposed to represent Yoshi
and he's
P.
thanking you.
And he comes out and he thanks you like basically personally for playing his game. Yeah. And it's like, that's so nice.
I cried when he did that for Endwalker.
Yeah.
I did. So that's the whole thing with this game, is that the history of it is a history of kind of rebirth
and redemption.
And it showcases kind of the fortitude that this game has, and it is here to stay. Yeah. This game is here to stay. It will never disappear. The player base is incredible. They truly are a passionate bunch. Yeah. Like my wife and I had met some of our guild mates
that's right.
From the game.
Yeah.
And we've hung out. We just really do love the game. Yeah. In all of its entire thing. So now I'm curious though, with all the love that we have for this, is there any criticism you could give them?
I mean, so no game is ever going to be perfect.
Yeah, except
It's-
Diablo 2 LOD.
I'll take your word on that one. Because I know that while we sing this game's praises all day long, there are a lot of people who have tried it and it's just not for them. There are certain things that I think they made a decision to do these things. I don't necessarily know if we can call them weaknesses at that point then. But what I'm talking about is the way that the main story actually carries out in game. A lot of like the content that you're able to do with friends, like dungeons, like raids and everything, is locked behind this main story.
Yeah.
And so if you're like just don't really care about story whatsoever, I can see why it'd be kind of annoying because you're wanting to do like all these raids and all these dungeons and all this stuff, but you can't do it unless you go through the story.
Taking a jab at Sam right here.
Yeah. And and a lot of people just like, just hit escape, skip the cutscenes and everything.
That breaks my heart.
And it hurts me a little bit, but like, I guess I can't, to each their own, whatever floats your boat. Everyone's going to have different tastes. I just like it does sort of hurt to see them just skip over such a good story.
I know.
And so that's maybe one thing. If they could somehow figure out, I don't even know how they would do this. Like I can't offer any remedy for this, but if there was some magical way for them to be able to cater to those players as well as letting people enjoy the story, that would be the way to go. But like, I don't really see a way around it because they want people to experience that story. That's what they like really pour their heart and soul into.
So that's something that you think is a criticism for them, right? Like give the people who don't care the ability to.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing.
But that's the thing. Cause like once you offer that option of, hey, do you want to go through the story or just skip it? I feel like a lot of people would just say skip, and not even realize what they're missing. Don't
do that shit.
Don't do that shit. It's a lot of reading. It is a lot of reading, and there are some slow parts, but I think it's worth it. I think it's
worth it, and that's coming from someone who is a min-maxer.
Yeah,
and someone who, like, for example, Endwalker came out. I didn't sleep till I finished the entire expansion.
I remember I was working that day.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to get on when I could. And I saw you just cruising through it. And I was like, man, I want to.
Not once did I skip a story. I played through the entire expansion nonstop. Didn't skip the story because I think the story is such a big part. It's you have to imagine yourself as that character. Into that world and immerse yourself into it.
Yeah.
And then that's when you really do feel it, I feel.
So let me ask you.
Yeah.
Sort of you gave your initial impressions.
Yeah.
And I think you might have kind of covered this already, but maybe about talking specifically about the story. What is it that stood out to you the most? Like what is it that made it so you didn't skip any of those cutscenes, being someone who doesn't usually care about that kind of stuff?
So let me give you guys, there's a spoiler warning here.
Yes. Spoiler alerts.
We're a spoiler. I'll give you 5 seconds to pause and then we'll timestamp it somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. So the reason that I decided to give stories a shot, because I did watch most of the stories for Heaven's Ward. I did. But it wasn't until Stormblood that I was like, I'm fucking locked in.
Yeah. I love Stormblood.
So the reason that Stormblood to me was such a turning point for how I played the game was because I'm a samurai.
That's right.
And that's when the samurai was introduced.
Yes.
And that's when you kind of see the story of this person. We'll call him the greatest swordsman alive. Gosetsu, right? So Gosetsu was such a strong part of my identity into the game. And anything he did, I was just so enamored. The story of the kingdoms fighting, the way that he would protect Suyu.
Yeah, so like a quick overview, the Stormblood expansion story, it was really a story about like rebellion
Yeah.
and taking back, one's homeland from like this
Invaders,
oppressive, this oppressive force and everything. And Gosetsu is like this giant like mountain of a man who's a samurai. And like his voice almost makes me think of Uncle Iroh from Avatar.
Yeah.
And so he's like this he's like pretty wise, but at the same time like really lighthearted and can joke around and stuff. And so he's just such a great character that was introduced in that expansion.
Yeah. So that's what got me. Is just the fact that Gosetsu
It played to the
to
character
who I
that
am.
you specifically were sort of
literally
making.
not sort of. It's literally it played to who I was. My identity in 14 was this samurai that I spoke about earlier. And so I felt such a strong connection to him that I was like, I need to know what's going to happen. Like, there's not any point in this story where I can skip because what if he shows up?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm not there? No. Imagine like disappointing this man. And I play a character who is a Lalafell. So I'm like this big. This big.
They're little potato people.
Yeah. So I'm a potato person. And that was the turning point for me. And the way that this game, the entirety of 14 is exceptional. But one of the changes I wish they would implement, sorry, this is kind of going off
I know.
of the Gosetsu thing, is I wish they had better bot removal with this. So the game is free to play until level...
At this
until
point,
the
it's 70.
second expansion.
Yeah.
So so they legitimately give you the game for free up to level 70, which is hundreds of hours of content.
It's a lot.
For free.
Yeah.
So with this having a free option, there are a lot of bots I wish that they would remove. But that's the thing. It's very difficult for them, I feel. But there has to be a way. This game is making so much money. The revenue that Square has, I believe that they can put resources into removing the bots, the spammers, because it takes away from the immersion. I don't care about FF14 Square Jail, .com, bro. Like, I really don't. And
it's just one of those things. Every MMO faces this problem.
Every free MMO,
dude. Even paid, because like WoW has a bot problem also, man.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
They somehow manage to get in no matter what the MMO is. If there's money to be made off of people, the bots and gold farmers are going to be there.
That's one thing that I wish Square would kind of address.
Yeah.
Another thing that I would like for Square to address is the server tick. So
that's a tricky thing. So and we might have to explain what this means exactly to the listeners at home. But it's interesting in a game like WoW. If I like cast a spell on this area
instant
over here, right? The second you see the animation coming down, like that's when the damage is happening there, right? In Final Fantasy XIV, it's a little bit tricky where it's like what you said, it's called a server tick. And so there will be a circle that appears in a boss fight. And so that tells you, okay, there's going to be damage done in this area. You got to not be there. If you're standing in that circle when like a certain like time hits, when the server ticks, it doesn't matter if you're not in the circle anymore. When the actual like explosion goes off, you're going to take the damage anyway.
And I say this as someone who has done the more difficult stuff. Server tick really did fuck me up on Fall Guys.
On the Fall Guys
Final
event?
Fantasy collab.
That's funny. Yeah.
Fuck that. That is when I realized I hated the server tick issue.
What really, I never really minded it in PvE content. It's the PvP where server tick just doesn't make sense to me.
Oh yeah.
That's one thing that as much as I kind of shit on WoW, that's one thing that they have PvP figured out. Like it's just better.
I guess that's another that's a criticism you have.
Yeah. I guess just the PvP side of the game is a bit lacking. Granted,
how about Rival Wings?
I know our producer Jane over there, she loves Rival Wings.
She actually...
But, see, that's the problem though, is that it's lackluster, the PvP in general, partially because the numbers aren't really there.
Yeah.
Most of the players are really just into the PvE content. So, why would they devote so much time to this
resources
aspect of the game that hardly anyone's playing? Jane loves Rival Wings. She only ever gets to play it when there's a Moogle event. And the only reason that is the case is because it's a really easy way to farm like these tokens. And so everyone will jump onto that mode. Otherwise, if that event's not going on, no one's playing that game mode. So Jane doesn't get to play it ever. So it's a little bit, it's partially on the players. There's just not enough demand for it. So yeah, that's an interesting
criticism though.
Yeah.
That's still a valid criticism.
Yeah, it is fair.
And I agree with that. And so, we're kind of bringing the episode to a close soon. But I wanted to let you guys know where we're playing. So since we're based out of the US, we're playing on Crystal server Crystal Data Center. Yeah, Crystal DC Mateus server.
Yes.
And it's a role-playing server.
Yes, technically it's an unofficial role-playing server.
It's the number one.
Is it number one? I thought Balmung was the number one.
Not anymore.
Really? Okay.
Mateus
well, there you go.
is. And so, if you do decide to play, let us know. Like we'll be there. We'll help you out. We'll do what we can to make the game enjoyable for y'all.
Yes. Yeah. And it makes it easy because we love our little sprouts.
I got y'all.
New players when you start. You're gonna have this little green sprout next to your name that it lets people know you're new. And normally I would be like, oh no, everyone's gonna know I'm new. But the community is so welcoming, so helpful. They
will protect the sprouts.
Yes,
there are instances where a sprout shows up and like they're watching a story. Usually you would think like some jackass would like just run.
Yeah,
even if there was. Everyone else in that party will defend the sprouts.
We won't start the boss fight if you're watching the boss cutscene.
If you're a tank and you do that shit and I'm in there, bro, we will vote kick you.
I've been healing and like just let a tank die because he does that. I'm like, no, we're gonna wait for the dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No way. So again, we're not recommending anything, but if you were to give Final Fantasy XIV a shot, it is free. We're in the Crystal Data Center. We're on Mateus server, and just message us on Instagram or on the Discord, and we'll play. We'll run some dungeons. Some people really like Dorian loves the lower level dungeons, and
depends on how low we're talking about.
We're talking like 8.
No,
and he will run these with y'all.
I will. I would do it for the sprouts.
I would not. I do not like the lower level dungeons because I have no buttons to press.
Yeah, no,
but I think that's a good place to stop for 14. We just kind of talked about it. I mean, it's a beautiful game.
It's such a huge game, but it's such a beautiful game. Yeah, we would have to, if we really wanted to talk about everything, we'd have to have like 3 or 4 episodes just to do that.
That's not even covering it.
Yeah.
I feel like
it'd have to be like 3 or 4 just to talk about the story.
Yeah.
Like we would need more to talk about PvP, to talk about the raids, to talk about Hildebrand. That's a whole other thing.
Holy shit. Before we do go, I want to talk slightly about Hildebrand.
Okay.
Because this is a character that was supposed to be for comedic relief.
Yes.
And he was not a part of main story for a while until this expansion where he is now not just a comedic character, but he is a comedic Thanos level power.
See, I haven't gotten that far. I didn't know that he's supposed to be super, super strong.
Sorry, he's not.
Oh.
His dad is.
Oh, Godbert?
Godbert is literally, as his name infers, a god.
Wow, that's great.
And, I appreciate y'all for kind of staying with us. It's been, I wish we could fucking go longer for Final Fantasy XIV.
I guess just like to wrap it up, final thoughts on the game. Just like
love it. Wouldn't change much about it. Would change the PvP. Would change the bots. And that's all I have. How about you? What do you have?
Yeah, final thoughts, same. Like it's a beautiful story. Made me cry multiple times.
Me,
Ugh. Like I had to close my door because I was like, I can't let people see me like this.
Me and Dorian, when we played through, we'd be crying out a cutscene.
Yeah.
And we're on Discord, so you just hear the you hear the sniffles.
Yeah.
And then my wife talks.
She's like,
nothing.
yeah.
Unaffected.
She's like, I don't get it. What are y'all crying about?
And it's like,
what's wrong with you?
What's wrong?
What is wrong with you?
It's fucked up.
Robot.
Anyways, I think that's good closure. I think we love the game. We're gonna continue playing the game.
Yeah.
I have to continue playing the game because I have a house there.
Yes.
And if I stop playing the game, I lose the house.
Yeah.
So,
just don't want to go into it. I'll just let you know this. There's a real estate market in this game. Just the fact that that's a thing.
there's a real estate market.
Yeah.
And it's serious.
Yeah.
It is honestly serious stuff.
It's serious stuff.
Yeah, my wife and I, we both have a house in there.
But anyway, I guess time to what are we gonna talk about on the next?
Well, the next one?
Yeah, on the next one.
Oh, we're talking about
it's going over to Drexel because
back to me.
Yeah, just the next two episodes were.
And when he said Drexel, it's Jay.
Sorry. Ah, God, that's gonna take some getting used to. But what was I saying? So we're gonna kind of go with the format for the next two episodes where he's gonna give me a game that I haven't played that he really likes.
Yeah, and then he'll give me a game to play that
I love that he's
really
never
loves.
played.
Yeah,
yeah. So
this one that's coming up is gonna be Path of Exile, and I know you've seen it. It's daunting. It's a lot.
It's a lot. I've seen like the skill trees and stuff, and I'm like, oh,
yes.
Okay.
So the skill tree is huge. We're gonna be playing that. And we'll have footage of that. I think it'll be a fun footage for you guys to see Dorian over here try and tackle on one of the most difficult games as far as action RPGs go.
I'm gonna be watching a lot of YouTube videos, I think.
You're gonna have to, I feel.
Yeah.
To start the game. But that's the next one. And until then, right? Still don't have a way to
I mean, what if we just like